Welcome to this video tutorial, which will introduce you to Sova's suite of ability tests, including the tests available, how results are calculated, and the basics of interpretation. The video will ensure you have a sound understanding of the mechanics of the tests to support you with applying these in a workplace context. You should allow approximately 20 minutes to watch the video. A transcript of the audio content is available for you to download, along with recommended further reading and a link to complete the tests. Sova's suite of ability tests follow a time-recorded but not time-limited format. In practice, this means that, unlike other ability tests, you do not have a limit on how long you can take to provide an answer to each item. However, the time you take to provide your response is recorded behind the scenes and factored into your score. The tests follow an adaptive testing approach, which means that they adapt to the level of ability of the individual test taker. This contrasts with static ability tests, whereby every candidate completes exactly the same questions, which usually become harder as the test progresses. This overcomes some of the issues with static test formats, such as overexposure of items, requiring a very long test to get an accurate assessment of ability, and needing to select a test that is appropriate to the ability level required for the role. The tests are compatible across devices, but are typically better completed on a device with a large enough screen so that you can see all of the information you need to answer the question. We generally recommend against the use of mobile phones for our ability test items. Each test takes an average of 15 minutes to complete, which helps to ensure factors such as candidate fatigue or attention span do not affect results. There are also multiple language versions available to ensure candidates have the opportunity to complete in their first language. This is because completing an ability test in a second language, even if you are fluent, can disadvantage a candidate, as they need to translate complex content before providing a response, as well as subtle differences in the meaning of words across languages. This is a particular issue for verbal reasoning tests, which usually involve making sense of a lengthy and complex passage of text. The tests can also be personalised to your organisation. This includes the ability to add tailored welcome and thank you videos or messages, as well as adapting items so they mirror the context of your organisation, industry sector, or the target role to ensure they feel right to the candidate. Sova has 3 core ability tests. These include verbal reasoning, which assesses how quickly and accurately candidates can interpret and process written information. This is often relevant to roles that involve an interpretation of lengthy and complex written documents or contracts, such as roles in law or journalism and some sales and leadership roles. Numerical reasoning assesses a candidate's ability to work through, interpret, and analyse numerical data. This is often helpful in roles that involve analysing numerical data, such as business analysis or finance. Logical reasoning assesses how a candidate can process abstract information, such as identifying patterns in a sequence. This type of reasoning ability is involved in fields like coding, as well as the sciences. It is also considered relatively culture-free and is less affected by educational background, as it does not require knowledge of mathematical concepts or vocabulary. All 3 tests take approximately 15 minutes to complete, and there are 15 items in each test. All 3 are time-recorded but not time-limited. The test will provide you an indication of someone's potential to problem solve when faced with novel problems that draw on the specific area of reasoning. As such, they can be very helpful when assessing candidates who do not have much experience in the given field, or where the demands of the role mean it is highly likely the candidate will face a range of complex novel problems that they may not have encountered before. Given the tests are measuring a specific area of reasoning ability, it is important to always start with an analysis of the requirements of the specific role to ensure you include the right tests in your assessment process. Sova's ability tests use an adaptive branching technique, whereby the difficulty level of the next item the candidate is presented with depends upon whether they have correctly answered the previous question or not. So, for candidate A, you will see that easier questions are presented when they provide an incorrect response. Contrast this with the path taken by candidate B, who appears to be answering the majority of questions correctly, so they'll be harder or of equal difficulty. Items are presented in 5 stages with 3 items at each stage. The responses to this stage are then used to ascertain the candidate's level of ability before the next block is selected. In practice, this means the system will present candidates with 3 questions with a medium level of difficulty in stage 1 at the start of the test. The candidate's responses to these items are scored to provide an initial estimate of their ability level. The branching rules are then consulted and the appropriate stage 2 items are administered. This means that after completing stage 1 items, high-scoring candidates will get 3 harder questions in stage 2, while low-scoring candidates will be given 3 easier questions. This process repeats iteratively for the remaining stages of the test. In this way, the test adapts to the maximum ability level of the test taker. This has a number of benefits, including content security, as the assessment is different for each candidate, as well as providing a more time-efficient assessment of maximum ability and avoiding issues related to selecting test difficulty for a specific candidate population, role, or context. This approach also tends to improve the candidate experience, as candidates will be able to correctly answer at least some of the questions presented to them. To ascertain the difficulty level of items at each stage, the development of the items involved a review by multiple stakeholders to determine its difficulty level, in addition to ensuring its cross-cultural and workplace context applicability. This review, in addition to subsequent iterations of the items, ensured an appropriate spread of difficulty level and content type. The difficulty of each item was then quantified by determining the percentage of candidates who correctly answered the item in initial trials. For example, an easy item would have been answered correctly by 90% of candidates and as such would have a difficulty level of 0.9. The time the candidate takes to respond to the items is also factored into scoring because, as mentioned, there is no time limit to respond to each item. As such, the candidate's raw score is based on the difficulty level and time taken for the items they answered correctly. This raw score is then compared to others who have completed the assessment before. Sova's comparison or norm group consists of a sample of around 1,500 people from the UK, Europe, Australia and across Asia. The global nature of our norm group provides a strong and robust set of benchmarks for use in assessment processes across global organisations. It is also possible to create personalised norms for use with the assessments that reflect the demographic of your target candidate population. This norming process enables raw scores to be transformed to a percentile score, which reflects the number of people in the norm group that the candidate performed the same or better than. For example, a candidate at the 50th percentile will have scored the same or better than 50% of the norm group. Sova's reports also translate this numerical score into a verbal description. For example, a candidate with a score at the 50th percentile will have an around average score in relation to that group. When interpreting ability assessment results, it is important to keep in mind the nature of what is being measured. Remember that scores reflect reasoning ability in the specific area being assessed and are not a broader indication of intelligence. Scores are also not infallible and can be affected by factors such as test anxiety, confidence in the specific area, and educational background. Performance on the test can also be affected by disability and neurodiversity, and as such, candidates should be given the opportunity to raise if this will affect their completion, so an appropriate reasonable adjustment can be applied. It is possible to add extra time to the tests, which will affect the calculation of results. As with any assessment in the workplace, ensure you interpret results through the lens of which qualities are important to the assessment context, situation, and target role. You may find a candidate with significant knowledge and experience can perform just as effectively as someone with a high reasoning test result, or vice versa. So ensure you consider the bigger picture when using the test to make judgments about a person. You may also opt to weight different ability tests differently depending on their relevance to the assessment process and role in question. The tests can be applied in a number of different ways to a selection context. They're perhaps most frequently applied to provide an initial sift of a large pool of applicants where the area of ability has been identified as important to potential in the role. However, when using cut-off scores, you should ensure the sifting process will not unfairly disadvantage candidates on the basis of their demographics, such as sex or ethnicity, given the group differences that can be apparent on certain tests. To avoid this risk, Sova can work with you to ascertain the optimum cut-off score, which will ensure a fair and legally robust process. An alternative application, which avoids much of the risk of adverse impact, is to include ability test items as part of a wider blended sifting solution. This can include personality, motivation, as well as situational judgment and even technical questions, and provides a more rounded and holistic yet time-effective initial sift of candidates against all of the qualities that matter. Ability tests may also be used to rank order candidates and select the top performing applicants from a pool. However, in this case, you should check that the ranking process has not caused any adverse impact. Further, performance on any test can involve a degree of measurement error, and this should be considered when using test scores to rank order applicants or when applying cut-offs. Ability tests can also be used in a career coaching context to help someone identify their fit to potential career paths. For example, someone may complete a verbal reasoning test alongside an inventory of their interests, career anchors and motivations, as well as a personality assessment when deciding between a career as an accountant or an investigative journalist. Ability tests are less commonly used in development settings, given the tests are providing an indication of fluid intelligence, which is unlikely to increase in response to development. However, they may be used to help an individual understand their strengths and raise awareness of development areas and to identify alternative strategies to complete tasks or responsibilities effectively in their role. For example, someone who finds verbal reasoning problematic may choose to work with others who are strong in this area if required for a project, or may develop their own processes and methods that help them to ensure that they pull out the important information when working with long, lengthy written documents or contracts. Reports are available for practitioners and present results in terms of percentiles, along with a description of what is being assessed and how it is likely to be relevant to the world of work. A verbal description of results is also provided to support interpretation. Reports are also available for candidates, which provide a description of what is being assessed and how it is likely to be relevant to the world of work, along with a verbal description of results to support interpretation, but without the percentile score. In summary, Sova's ability tests follow a timed but not time-limited format and apply an adaptive testing approach whereby the test adapts to the level of the individual test taker, helping to maximise test security, provide a time-efficient assessment of maximum performance and enhance the candidate experience. Results are presented as a percentile score based on the difficulty level and time taken to correctly respond to items compared to others who have completed the assessment before. Results should be interpreted based on the specific area of ability being assessed. It is also important to consider factors that can influence results and broader role requirements. The test can be applied to selection, career coaching and personal development contexts, and a practitioner and candidate report is available for each test. Before you go, look at your own ability test results. How do these affect your approach to problem solving with different types of information? What strategies do you apply alongside your reasoning ability to reach a solution? Thank you for watching this tutorial. We hope it has provided you with an introduction to Sova's suite of ability tests and provided a starting point to help you interpret, explain and feedback the assessments. Remember to download the video transcript so you can use the notes ongoing and check out our recommended references.